All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session titled Funding Your Business. My name is Sierra Ladroma with Griffin-Hammis Associates. I am joined by my wonderful colleague, Molly Sullivan. Molly will help us monitor the chat box. So if you haven't already, which it looks like so many of us have, please pull up the chat function by clicking on the icon that reads chat at the bottom of your Zoom screen menu. Please use the chat box to join the conversation by asking questions, sharing ideas, and leaving comments. There will be a short Q&A at the end of our conversation with the entrepreneurs on today's webinar. And real quick on Griffin-Hammis Associates, GHA has over 30 years of experience providing training and technical assistance to support individuals across the spectrum of disabilities to become self-employed and small business owners. Lastly, we want to thank the U.S. Small Business Administration and the National Disability Institute in leading the Community Navigator pilot program that creates the space for this webinar. While the webinar is funded by the U.S. Small Business Administration, all the opinions, conclusions, and recommendations expressed here are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the views of the SBA. At the end of today's session, we'll share upcoming events, and the National Disability Institute team will share some exciting information with you about the Small Business Hub and resources available to you. All right, so let's get to the good part. I am so excited to introduce you to today's guest speakers. Please meet Jane Jonas of Eyeth Studios and Lost River Vacations. Jane has an extensive experience in videography, photography, creative writing, journalism, project management, accessibility, web development, and graphic design. With over 20 years of expertise, Jane is efficient and results-driven, and that is applied to every project. Jane also co-owns several other businesses with other deaf entrepreneurs. This has naturally led to providing strategic consultation and organizational transformation services. And real quick about Jane's businesses, for more than 10 years, Eyeth has provided a wide spectrum of web design and creative searches and is proud to work with all deaf contractors. Jane's second business, Lost River Vacations, located in West Virginia, is 22 acres of absolute beauty as trees and nature surround you with serenity. Lost River Vacations currently has 2 beautiful tiny homes, several trails, a 9-hole disc golf course, and so much more. And I'll have Jane share way more about both. I am also thrilled to introduce you to Renee Metropolis of Fulcrum Stained Glass. Renee is the artist and owner of Fulcrum Stained Glass, which is a Rhode Island-based stained glass design and fabrication studio dedicated to solid craftsmanship with an inclination to making glass more functional in today's world. Renee has been honing her stained glass fabrication skills since 1998. She draws inspiration from color, light, and the works of Frank Lloyd Wright. She also strives to create a balance between form and function of stained glass. Since Renee is a fabricator at heart, her techniques include incorporating heat, patinated, Renee, you'll have to check me on that, copper sheeting, decorative soldering, glass layering, wire work, and intricate glass grinding. She is also involved with light carpentry, metalworking, interior home restoration and painting. And as a former jeweler, she has various knowledge of the jewelry process and semi-precious gemstones. And you'll hear way more about Renee and the Fulcrum stained glass in a bit. So real quick, to Jane and Renee, thank you so much for sharing your time, your knowledge, and energy with us today, just to learn more about how the both of you started your business, your advice to entrepreneurs, your growth process and planning, how your business was funded, and what resources or communities you leaned on or continue to lean on to receive support for your business. And then lastly, I hope that this conversation serves to inspire and guide those that are tuning in today, or if you're watching this in the future. All right, so I am going to be doing some screen sharing during this webinar, so please be patient with me as I kind of navigate that. And let's get into the conversation. So Jane, can you please tell us about your businesses?
Okay. So I graduated from college, and after that, I started working for a big company as a web designer. And during my time there, I realized, there wasn't any true connection with different coworkers, and I had no interpreters provided to me. And it was a very hearing-centric environment. So a lot of my friends had started setting up businesses or promoting into different positions after college. And I had already worked for another web developer company. I had a lot of experience with coding, web designing. That's something that I was always into growing up. And friends had asked if I could do some web developing on the side. So I developed some websites. And I thought to myself, why don't I set up my business? And my father is also a business owner as well. And he was a great role model to me throughout my childhood. And there's not a lot of deaf folks in our community who own businesses. As a deaf child, I did not see any deaf business owners, especially role models out there who are entrepreneurs. There are deaf teachers and those who work in vocational rehab. But when it comes to true business owners, I did not see many. So I started working as a solo entrepreneur, and I was a bootstrap. I started contracting with different clients since 2006. 2006, I'm a little old now. It's been a long time. But since 2006, my business has grown. I've done really well. I onboarded a lot of my deaf friends. I always wanted folks who were deaf and who could sign ASL because I know that they have the potential to do this job. So I grew my business to over 30 contractors, plus now I have over 500 to 1,000 websites I've developed. We also host over 100 clients, and really business is booming. And I also have an assistant supporting me with clients as well. And I've done really well. And I went to a deaf-owned brewery with a few friends, and we were just chatting and having a few beers. And another friend of mine owned a film production company, and another friend had also owned like a renovation company for homes. And we were discussing a camp that we went to as kids, and unfortunately it had shut down because there wasn't enough funding in order for the campground to continue. So we were thinking, how can we create a deaf outdoor experience? We thought it was so needed. So we said, why not we go ahead and buy land in West Virginia? And of course, we were discussing this over drinks, and we didn't think it was serious until the next day we were like, no, we're all serious, and we were all in. So we started discussing, started looking for different places, different land. And when I started Eyeth, my other business, it was a bootstrap. I did not receive any funding from investors. And we needed some extra money from Lost River Vacations because we all did have funding, but we wanted community support and we wanted to grow more organically. So our Kickstarter started there. So that is a sum of my experience. I hope I did not go too far, but
No, that was perfect. And to kind of show you all just how beautiful Lost River Vacations is, I do have two segments of a video that I want to share with everyone, but please know that the full video will be available under the resource link for this recording in about 1 to 2 weeks. And Jane, I have a quick question. Did Eyeth Studios help create this video?
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
we supported with that when my friend also owns a film production company, but I actually set up the website for Lost River Vacations, and also my friend who also works on homes as well. And we have other companies who supported us during that journey as well.
this is stunning. This is a perfect opportunity to not only show Lost River Vacations, but the work and passion of Eyeth Studios. So I'll go ahead and share these videos. And again, thank you for being patient as I work through the sharing process. Can we see this okay?
Yes.
Excellent.
Hi,
Hi. Hey,
my name is Jane Jonas.
I'm Sean Harrington. I'm Andrew St. Cyr. We built a house here in Lost River in West Virginia.
This is a really beautiful place called Lost River, located deep in the hills of West Virginia.
Beautiful, right? Let us tell you a story of how we started out.
A few years ago, I came here and thought this place was gorgeous. I really wanted to do something here, so I discussed the idea with two friends.
Those memories of deaf people congregating and going camping. Now that I think about it, reminiscing, you're right, where do we go these days? We should do something about it.
Why not buy some land and build a tiny house on it?
I can build a house, right.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We could help the deaf economy by providing this. I'm all in, yes! After mulling, I talked it over with my classmates at Gallaudet and discovered more friends also interested, creating group support, then we proceeded to establish this. With all in agreement, we started LRV,
Invested in some land here.
bought 23 acres of land and started construction, where we can get away to the wilderness. We all love nature and the outdoors, so why not unite those and make a business out of our passions?
All right, that is the first video. And then we're going to get into sharing a bit about what Jane had mentioned of the Kickstarter and how Lost River Vacations was kind of funded by the community, which is beautiful. So let's go ahead and move into that video.
I mean, wow.
We have a large piece of land to fill up with more houses. We now have one house, so do we want to have just one house open to use? No, we want to build more houses.
We have worked and built this from a seed as a dream of creating an authentic place for the community to come together, connect, and interact.
Yes, we do need your help in building more of these houses to create a beautiful community here. Donations will help us expand, hence being able to create more houses. As a result, we will be able to give back even more to our community.
We've set up a Kickstarter, which will help us really proceed quickly with this. With this house behind me, we've shown you what we've established so far. We're now showing you our dreams and what the possibilities available here are. How can we make this happen and become a literal reality with your support?
All right. This video, Jane, is such a good idea of a Kickstarter fundraiser and to really get that buy-in and investment from community members, from friends. And I'm just so glad that this exists for us to show. All right. Thank you for sharing a little bit more about your businesses. And Renee, I would love if you were able to kind of share a little bit about your business as well. And I'm going to go ahead and share screen, but you can go ahead and get started.
Okay, great. Hi everyone, I'm Renee, and I am the owner of Fulcrum Stained Glass. If you're wondering what a fulcrum is, it's the point on which a lever rests. So if you think of like a seesaw, that point. And when I was apprenticing, I used to score sheets of glass, and there would be little chips under it because I didn't sweep it properly, and it would break over the chip. And that little chip created a fulcrum in the glass. So this was like a running gag around the store for I don't know how long. And then 15 years later, I remembered it and I was like, I think I'm gonna go with fulcrum stained glass because of the memory and because it kind of sounded cool too. So that's the short story behind the name. When you think of stained glass, most people think of church windows and Victorian windows. I wanted to kind of give a different feel to that and let people know that it can be so much more than that. And I like to balance form and functionality. So I wanted to also let people know that glass can be used for almost anything, as long as you have structural integrity. And yeah, so I wanted to let people know it can be more functional. So next slide, please. So this is an example of some of my work. The first one is called, it's like a copper foil overlay, and that's all solder, and then you patinate it copper. And that's just one piece using one type of technique. And the next picture is a custom light bulb installation made with dichroic glass. And dichroic glass changes different colors in different light. So, and the way they produce it, it's very expensive. So I only use little pieces at a time usually. So that came out really awesome. The next, when she sent me the pictures of the installation in our house, that was really nice to see. And the next picture are Monstera leaf propagation planters, or bud vases. And I decided Monsteras are very popular, but everyone makes sun catchers. And I said, well, I'm not going to do what everyone else is doing. I'm going to wait until I have a really good idea for an application for like one of them. And I said, oh, I think I have it, because I've been seeing a lot of, propagation stations, as they call them. And I said, I kind of wanted to jump in on that. But again, I don't like to do what everyone else is doing. I'd like to put my own little spin on it. And I think that's what makes me unique. The next one on the left middle is actually a three-sided, like, it's like a candle cover. So you put it over a candle and it lights up. The flower and the gems are dichroic also. So when the flame flickers, this glass changes all different colors. And the middle is me. And the one to the right of that is a collab I did with a friend of mine in Colorado. I've actually become friends with her. That's my second collab with her. I became friends with her in, I think, late 2018. And it was just through Instagram. Like, hey, I love your work. We both love rainbow stuff. We both love color. Why don't we do a collab? And we kind of hit it off, and we've been friends ever since. She did the polar bear and the bottom part. And again, I use different kinds of dichroic glass for the sky. And let me see. And the bottom, I believe it's Australian sheepdog. That one, the bottom left, was a commission. And that one came out really cute. And that has glass paint on it. So that's showcasing another one of like the facets of stained glass techniques. And the middle one, so I also sell these dichroic gems to other glass artists. And these are rondelles, but they change, as you can see, they're all different colors, and they change different colors in the light, and other artists love to use them in their work. So I sell those as well. And the last one is a Cane Corso. That was another commission, and that one was really cool as well. The painting on that was incredible by the time I was done with it. And for those eyes, I tried an experiment of using like a domed gem that I ground, like that would fit in the eye socket, and then more like pink glass around the edge of the eye. And it looked so good. I loved that one. I almost didn't want to give it to the customer. So so that's a little sample of what the kinds of things that I do. And yeah, next slide, please. So yeah, I like to make panels, which is, it's not like a window per se, but you could hang it in a window. So a lot of the work I do is panels. I like to do 3D structures, as you saw before. And so yeah, I like to kind of see what's possible. What I do a lot of different experiments, and most of them turn out pretty well. Because over the years I've trained my brain. When I see a picture in my brain, I've trained my hands to make it, to create it and fabricate it. Whereas when I was younger, I used to be so I used to get so frustrated because it wouldn't come out right. And now when I see something in my brain, I know, and I'm like, would that work? And like, I think that's probably going to work. So I do it, and then, yeah, that's awesome. And find a new way to do something in stained glass, or make something really cool that, again, you might not expect.
Incredible.
That's about it.
Thank you. I was wondering if you could answer the second question first. Can you just tell us a little bit more about why you started your business, or what need you found yourself kind of filling for customers?
Sure. As it says, as a kid, I've always been drawn to color. Like, my world needed to have colors in it, or else I'd be very bored. So that was one of the things that kind of drew me to stained glass in the first place. I never knew how to make it, or I never had the means to kind of do it, and my environment wasn't very supportive of that. So when an art teacher held up a roll of copper foil and said, "Hey, I don't know what this is, but do you want it?" And I said, "Sure." And I looked up on the internet what it was, and I said, "Oh, that's how you join stained glass together and solder it," because I already knew how to solder from my father teaching me from a young age, from repairing electronics, which I also know how to do. So I was like, "Oh, perfect. I know how to do stained glass now." So that's kind of how I got started. And I love learning, and I also love teaching other people. I also love passing on information that I get, and experiences and whatnot. And so when I went into business 5 years ago, I was operating out of my apartment. What I wanted to do was, again, show people that, more was possible with stained glass than you thought, with like church windows and, stuff like that. Not that they're not beautiful. But I got a little taste of teaching through my classes that I took with other people, when the other students would come to me and say, "What are you doing here? What are you doing here?" And it was really kind of awkward with the teacher standing there. But I loved their faces, and I loved inspiring people. And because just letting them know that, like, you can do it, and I will help you. I'll be here to help you. And I really wanted that when I opened my studio. That's,
Wonderful.
yeah, that's pretty much why
Yeah,
I wanted to do this.
incredible. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And Jane, I'm going to ask you the same question. What need have you realized that you are filling with both Eyeth and Lost River Vacation?
I feel that the deaf community hasn't had a lot of successful business owners. There just hasn't been enough opportunity for businesses to grow that way. So I really want to be able to show through my website. I think that really represents what we can do. And deaf kids are able to look at that and see what they can accomplish. I feel it's also important to give an outdoor space for people from the community to come together and socialize and host different events. I'm hoping eventually that we're going to have a community space at Lost River Vacation, so people will be able to come together for those purposes. That's ultimately one of our major goals, is to really create a place where we can come together and celebrate our own as a group.
Yeah, and I want to continue this conversation with the next question of, when you were first starting Eyeth or Lost River Vacations, you can choose whichever you'd like to start with. What were the initial thoughts of, before I do this, I'm going to need A, B, and C? Do you remember what those needs were?
Really, for Eyeth, it was much easier for me because as a startup, I just worked with my laptop, which I already had, the computer, I already knew how to do web development and all that. So for me, Eyeth was a lot easier to start. It didn't require as much investment to start the business. I just basically started with the skills I had and using my computer to build from there. I created a lot of different opportunities for that. So really, there was almost no startup required for Eyeth. I just did that based on my own capabilities. But for the Lost River Vacations, that was very different. I was really lucky that I already had those two other people who own businesses as well, that we could work together. And because we were a little bit older, we had the experience. For me, I started Eyeth right out of college, basically from nothing. So once it came to Lost River Vacations, then there was a little bit of money we can invest in it and experience we could bring forward to create that.
Thank you. Renee, what about you? What was your first thoughts of when you were thinking to yourself, okay, I think I'm going to do this as a business? What are the top 3 things do you remember needing?
Well, one was obviously funding, because I didn't have anything. This is my 3rd time trying to start this business. First, like similar to Eyeth, when I apprenticed back in about 2008 or so, she ended up closing the store and left and moved. So I purchased a lot of her tools and glass. So I had an even bigger collection now. I said, okay, well, I have what I need to start my own business. But I didn't know too much about business. So I guess the second thing would be knowledge, because I really didn't, it took me years to learn how to open a business, how to, get the proper paperwork and become like legal, file taxes, like the whole thing. And then I would say those 2 things were really, off the top of my head, were really all that I needed. And probably I just needed more life experience as well, because I wasn't in a good place for a long time. And I had to kind of
Yeah.
heal from that before I could do anything with glass.
Yeah, and maybe let's just continue on here. I have a question for you about, what resources did you use to start your business and grow those life skills, but also who'd you reach out to? Who helped you?
So first I got in with a group called ORS, Ocean State Rehabilitory Service, and they helped with grants, and they referred me to they didn't really I don't know what the deal was. At first they were switching their supervisors, and I kind of got lost in the mix, but they referred me to the Rhode Island Developmental Disability Council, the RIDDC, and there I met Claudia and a few other people that really helped me. I got in with them and I did a program where it's an 8-week course and like a business class. And then at the end of the 8 weeks, they also gave me a grant, and that helped out a lot. And I found support with them as well. And then I went back to ORS, and then I also was eligible. I did a presentation about my business, and like I was a little bit more established, I guess. And you know, I had all the documentation, and I also I had a backer too, and I'll get into that in a second. So they gave me a grant for $10,000, and that helped out a lot as well. But to start everything off, actually one of those ladies that I mentioned that would crowd around me at the table and say, "What are you doing? Like, how are you doing this or that?" I reached out to her, and because she also owns a plumbing and heating business. And, you know, I said, "Hey, would you want to support me just to get my feet off the ground?" And she said, "Of course I would." So that kind of got the ball rolling. And with those two agencies, ORS and RIDDC, RIDDC still really helps me because they hold meetings every Thursday just to catch up and see how you're doing. And that support has been really great for me because as somebody that didn't come from a very supportive environment, that was kind of invaluable. So, and continues to be.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You just dropped so much information on there, and just how important connection, community, and just asking for help.
Yeah.
So important. So thanks. And Jane, do you remember any communities or resources that you kind of leaned on or continue to get support from with Eyeth or Lost River?
Unfortunately, when I started, there was really nothing. I didn't really have anything at that time back in 2008, 2006, when I was first getting started. I didn't have anything much that I knew of. But luckily, because of my father, who owned his own business, and he had his own lawyer as well, so my dad was really able to help me out big time. I could ask for help with anything for setting up my business, these little things that I needed. So I was able to get all of that and have an ongoing conversation with him as I needed. Plus everything I saw growing up, watching him run his own business. Sometimes I would help him out if he needed help with accounting or other things with his business. So I was able to help that out even while I was in high school. So I did pick up some knowledge that way. So that was very helpful for me. But now, because Gallaudet University has a program for entrepreneurs, so it helps them as new people coming in who want to become entrepreneurs. They know how to do it. So now I actually work as a mentor with the students who are in that summer program, with that summer camp, to help them out with their next steps. So I'm able to provide support to the next generation that way.
That's so great. And you had shared before the event started just how important that is to kind of really make it part of the normal conversation, and to start young so that we can really show that options aren't restricted and that our futures can look very different than maybe what we don't see or see around us. So I would love to kind of talk more about the Kickstarter campaign that you had with Lost River Vacations. I know you shared that with Eyeth Studio, you had your laptop and then that was go, you know? But with Lost River Vacations, you created and brought in people to help grow that. Can you just talk more about what a Kickstarter is, how that really helped you create Lost River Vacations and your experience?
Absolutely. Sure. When we were first coming up with the Lost River Vacation, it was just the three of us. We did invest some of our own money. We bought the land. We invested in a website. There was, no community support at first. It was just the three of us getting together, building the house. Once it got to the point where we finished the first house, that's when we opened up the Kickstarter and started asking for money for a second house, because we felt that we had a proof of concept, that we showed people what we've done, that we've already started, that we're underway, and get them excited. So that's when we would have like events at a deaf-owned business as well, and a deaf-owned brewery, where people were able to come together. More than 500 people came on start to our original launch. So we were able to announce the Kickstarter during that launch, let people know about what was going on, that was me coming soon, to get that excitement going. And then we had a go live party. And so everyone was already very anxious and excited at that moment to start donating. And they were also able to stay at our vacation spot at a discount, get t-shirts. We had drawings from deaf-owned people that you could get at different levels on the Kickstarter that people had donated. So people were really excited. More than 30,000 donations came in on our Kickstarter. And it was so exciting because, we already had a guest list. We were already booked out way ahead because of all this excitement. So, and because we'd already built this, nobody had to wait for anything. So we had a really good foundation. And then when people would come, they would come again, they would tell more of their friends, they would do more promotion. We were able to draw more community members into it. I'm not sure how much we need it. We could do it without it, but with it, it really helped. And it also helped us tie in with our deaf community as well. And we got people excited about taking vacations with other deaf-owned businesses, and our Instagram really took off. We had several followers. We put out a lot of information on Instagram to keep the excitement going, and everyone wants to know what we're doing next. So it's really exciting that we've got that energy in the community, and they've been very supportive of us.
That is so great. Thank you so much for sharing. I do have a follow-up question in regards to the Kickstarter. How did you go about creating a message that resulted in 30,000 people help, or not, was it 30,000 people that helped out, or what was that?
Yeah, we were able to get cash donations. I think it was around 200 or 300,000, somewhere around there in total. Around 300,000 that we were able to collect.
Yeah. And then how did you go about creating that message to get people invested? How did you get people to show up to that live fundraiser, or even click on an email or read one of your like newsletters or pamphlets?
We reached out with the Deaf News. That was one of our good friends who runs a particular news announcement that goes out through YouTube. It's called the Daily Moth. And there are several people that do watch the news that comes out on a regular basis through that channel. And so we were brought in for interviews so we could get our attention out to the community, that way get a lot of excitement going. Also talking about the party that we were hosting, the sponsors. Sorensen Communications also sponsored us, and they're really huge in the deaf community, this particular company. So they were able to advertise for us as well and help sponsor us. So that all helped us get the word out so that everyone in the community ended up knowing about it. So a lot of friends, a lot of our network of people that we know, as well as the other two people who co-run with me. So even though we live in different states, we're able to communicate and then also share with our local communities. So it's both large and small at the same time. So we really had a lot of people in the community interested, excited, and ultimately involved with us.
That's beautiful. I think it is so important, again, with both of your business, to really emphasize how great of power it is to involve the community in your work, and just asking for help. Renee, I know that you mentioned that for funding your business, you were helped by RIDDC, and then you were able to get a grant from them as well, and then the 10K from maybe a backer. I can't quite remember, but was there anything else that you wanted to share of how you funded your business?
Not really, but I will say that I have wanted this for about 15 years. And when I apprenticed for the other person, you know, I was like, oh, she offered me her studio for $5,000. And I'm about, I was very young. Well, you know, I haven't had a lot of life experience then. And she says, yeah, just buy my business for $5,000. I knew I wasn't ready. So I would say the number one thing to getting funding is patience and do the best you can every day. I know it's not like, you know, an easy fix, but that's what I found out, like, and things will come to you. You know, I found out that if you just do the best you can every day, things will come to you that you've never even thought would. But yeah, that's about it for funding, because I didn't have any of my own. I am on disability, so you know, I didn't have any savings or anything. I kind of started this from nothing, pretty much.
Yeah, thank you for speaking on the realities of entrepreneurship, and how it's not an immediate success, it's not an immediate income, but it takes time. And it might be a couple years or more in order to really get to where you're kind of envisioning for yourself. All right. Jane, can you share with us a unique barrier or instance that you still kind of maybe laugh about now, where that when you experienced starting your business, whether that's Eyeth or Lost River Vacations, and then how you overcame that?
Okay, well, for Eyeth, I remember when I was first starting out, I didn't have a lot of accessibility. So really, for example, when I would try to reach out to other people for referrals, or I would send them, you know, my business to other people who are hearing, and they would want to call me on the phone to talk about projects, and everything was on the phone, and I would explain that I'm deaf, and they would often say, oh, forget it. That happened to me. I can't even begin to tell you how many times. I couldn't even count how many times that happened. And even today, that still happens. So with phone calls, you know, anytime I would say, well, you can call through this other agency, they'd say, forget it. So I always appreciate anyone who's willing to take that extra step. You know, we can make a phone call, find another way to make it happen. But, you know, I didn't really feel that was even necessarily a barrier. You know, I feel like 80% of the people who work with me are from the deaf community or work with other deaf businesses, deaf residential schools. And then there's maybe the 10% are just general hearing people of the public who are willing to work with me. But yeah, there are a lot of people who are very auditorially based, where they expect you to be able to talk and listen to them. And they don't like having to find other ways to communicate with me. That has been a huge struggle. But when I talk about what the websites can look like, that helps. But with Lost River Vacations, you know, there is no phone number that's even listed. So they don't have any way of being able to contact me with everything. Everything's based on the service for renting vacation. Everything is web-based. So they have to figure out how to contact me. If they want any help, they can reach out to me. With Eyeth, it's a whole different thing. It's a whole separate business. So I make sure the draw is there. But, you know, for people to make sure that the water's running in the house, everything's working in the tiny houses, we can reach out through email. We can figure out how to talk. So it's really more that they're accommodating me, and how the conversation, I allow ways of contacting me that I allow through that. I still do have some problems where people are very struck with the fact that I'm deaf, and the communication happens that way, but overall it works.
To follow up with that, can you share what maybe some advice that you have with someone tuning in today, and they are still in the process of navigating those accessibility scenarios where it might end up with a potential client saying, oh no, never mind. What advice would you have for someone in that situation right now?
Well, my favorite quote is, the interpreter is not here for me, the interpreter is here for you.
That's it. Yeah,
Because
love that.
who does not know sign language? I'm sorry about that, but it's not about my disability. It's about your inability to sign and accommodate me in a way that we can communicate. And oftentimes that's really surprising to people, and it kind of gets them thinking in a different way.
I love that so much. And I do want to echo just how great you have been in communication with loss of vacations, because you do provide so many options. And one thing that I've noticed with your tiny homes and your rental stays compared to other Airbnbs or VRBOs or even hotels that I've visited is that you provided so much detail that it's almost just read it, have it with you, print it up when you're on your trip, and you're good to go. And so thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And Renee, can you tell us about a unique instance or barrier that you experienced in starting your business and how you kind of overcame that?
Sure. About the time I wanted to open a business, I ended up getting Lyme disease, and I didn't know that I had it. So I got all these weird symptoms, and I don't think I had health insurance at the time, so I didn't go to the doctor, and my parents were, they were like, well, just, if it goes away, then it's okay, kind of deal like that. And it did go away, and it would come back, and I had difficulties. I had cognitive difficulties. I had physical difficulties. I was bedridden for about 3 weeks. And I kind of lost hope in, I stopped doing glass as a hobby, because back then I was doing it as a hobby. And I didn't really know what to do. So then I started seeing specialists. Maybe a couple of years later, I was like going in and out of this. I was on unemployment, and because I worked in jewelry for about 15 years on and off. And it was a very rough time. And then I was also, like I mentioned a couple times, I was also in a place that my environment was not good for me at all. So what I had to do specifically for me, I ended up joining a 12-step group called Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. And through that group, I found a different kind of healing that I didn't realize that I needed before. Because if I were to try and open a business before then and just like plow through my symptoms and pretend they're not there, and along with everything else in my life, it would have crashed and burned. And so I believe everything has, a right place and a right time. And through ACA, or the 12-step group, I found a bunch of people that were extremely supportive. That was a few years ago, quite a few years ago. And that was my first taste of being around supportive people. And that's kind of, for me, like I had to heal myself before I could learn about business, and because I just wanted to rush to the finish line. And as we all know, that doesn't really happen. So I had to do a lot of inner work before I could work on the outside stuff. So it's not really business specific, but that was one of the huge hurdles that I had to overcome. And just learn how to do what's right for me. That's basically what I had to learn before I opened the business. Because as I said, I tried 2 times before, and for reasons that weren't even my own, it just failed. And it didn't fail, it didn't even get off the ground. So, which I was glad for, because I was not ready at that time anyway. So that's kind of
Yeah.
what I had to do.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And again, entrepreneurship, it takes such a toll on your entire self. And so it's so important to have care and balance as part of the plan of being an entrepreneur. So thank you for shining light on that. For the next question, so as you both continue to grow your businesses, can you share just a glimpse of what the planning or preparing for a new service product, or even maybe hiring on another consultant kind of looks like for the both of you? Jane, do you want to go first?
Well, I'm so sorry. My puppy's getting me. He's 7 months old, so I need to get him to calm down a little bit. He's a good boy, but yeah, he needs a little more training. At any rate, would you repeat that question for me one more time?
Yeah, can you give us a glimpse of what it kind of looks like for you to plan and prepare to add maybe a new service or a product, or maybe a tiny home or something like that?
Great. Yeah, perfect. Okay, well, with Eyeth, I am continuing to grow. I have several ongoing large contracts, and I've already got, up through 2024. So I'm starting to pull in some more contracts for the year to make sure we continue to grow. We keep our revenue going, expanding, and the number of people just continuing to grow. For the Lost River Vacations, we're starting to build a third house soon. So we're getting everything done. We're getting architecture work. We're designing it how we want it done. And we also want to get it zoning approved for 4 more houses. So we'll have a total of 8 houses. We've got the first 4 approved that we can work on. So we want to add on 4 more zonings so that we can build those. We haven't built those original 4. We're on the 3rd now soon, but we're working on getting those done. So that's our progress. It's a little bit slow, but we want to have a little outdoor kitchen space where people can come and gather and just socialize, have events. So that's what we're working on as well.
I can't wait to continue following your businesses and to see that. Renee, what about you? Can you give us a glimpse of what your planning process is and how you prepare to maybe create a new product or service? Or you can share about what's going on this weekend too, because that's going to be a pretty big moment.
Right, yeah. So, well, first of all, so I have a grand opening finally after moving in March. In the beginning of March, the studio's finally ready, and I'm pretty much, for the most part, like physically, I'm a one-person show. So I do have a website. It's run through Shopify, so I update that. I put new products on there, everything like that. I do all the photography. I do everything. But I had to advertise classes, so I take that. Actually, I'm sorry, I do. One of my friends that I sell out of a gallery, the gallery in Bristol, Rhode Island, I mentioned, and they one of my friends there helps me with writing little blurbs and making the graphics. So then I can post them. Like once in a while, I'll have her like, hey, I'm having a grand opening. Can you make like a graphic? And she keeps it pretty cohesive with my my branding and whatnot. So I'll have her do that, and I'll post it on the website. I'll advertise on Facebook, Instagram. I have a little bit of an Instagram following. It's kind of modest, but I have a few people over there. And so that's basically what I do. So this Saturday from 6 to 9, I'm going to have, I went to New York and New Jersey to get hand pick sheets of glass to bring back here and sell to people, because people in Rhode Island do not like to drive more than 15 minutes. So it's like 45 minutes from like the top of the state to the bottom where the other two stained glass people are. And I'm right in the middle. So everybody's like, that'll be great. So that's kind of what I want to, I'm trying to become like a glass salesperson, just to have another outlet for people to go to. And so I'm advertising that. I'm having a sale on glass that I already had in stock. I'm having a raffle, and I hope, and from there on, I hope people find out about me and know that they can come here for glass. And that's kind of my process of advertising and whatnot.
Yeah, thank you. That's so neat that you are filling a need to provide glass to people in the area, especially because you know that people don't want to drive, don't want to make that trip.
Yeah.
But here you are,
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So I have two more questions for the both of you. The next one being, what advice would you share with someone who's joining us today, or maybe watching this as a recording in the future, who wants to start a business, but that they're maybe kind of stuck on funding, and they just don't know how to take that first step? What advice would you share with them? Jane, do you want to go first?
Sure. Really, my advice is simple. Start small. Test it out. See if people are interested in your product. Is there a demand? And grow from there. Don't start big and then in the future see that nobody wants to buy, right? Make sure that the demand is there and start slow and grow slow. But really, it's important to have that foundation.
Thank you. I agree completely. Renee, what about you?
I also agree with that as well. When I started out, it was a hobby, and I was selling to, friends and family for like a lot less than I thought I would, because I was underpricing myself. So, I was just getting a general vibe and seeing how people liked my things, and they're, wow, I'm blown away. Like, you should do this, on a bigger scale. And from there, I just kept going up little tiny steps. I became a member of the co-op, the gallery that I talked about in Bristol. I started selling my stuff there in 2018. And, it just little, and then I started gaining traction there. So it's like, don't do too many things at once. Just go step by step, very tiny bit. And just keep doing, as long as you put love into what you're doing, you'll be great. Like,
Excellent advice from the both of you. And the last question for today is, how can everyone here support you and your business? Jane, do you want to go first?
Come stay with us. Come to Lost River Vacations. And if you need web creating services, web designing, please reach out to Eyeth. I'll be sure to put in our websites in the chat.
And Renee, what about you?
if you'd like custom stained glass work, I do that. Or you could always follow me on Instagram or Facebook or both, and just leave some comments, leave some likes. That supports my business as well from afar. And yeah, that's about it. I'll put my website and links in the chat as well. Thanks.
And don't worry, I am going to speak as much as I can about all of your businesses. So before we transition into the Q&A portion, I want to just give the both of you another round of thank yous for being here today and just sharing such great information and your personal experience and expertise in starting and growing your business. I do really strongly encourage all of you to connect with both Jane and Renee. And if you are starting a business and you are to the point of creating a website or looking for assistance with any sort of marketing or social media, or if you know someone who is looking for those services, you can point them towards Jane and her team at Eyeth. And then I personally did vacation at Lost River Vacations, and it was incredible. So my family and I stayed in the Black Oak rental for a few days, and it was refreshing and it was the best way to disconnect. And then lastly, art in all forms is so important. And if you are looking to fill your space with unique and handcrafted art, please reach out to Renee and her shop, Fulcrum Stained Glass. And I know that you can do custom designs and commission. And I think it would just be perfect for your spaces, your home, or even as gifts for the holidays. And then you can find both of their contact information on this slide, as well as their business websites, and then Renee's Instagram as well. And then remember, just reach out, grow our network, grow your community, and just maybe continue the conversation if there was something that you connected with pretty strongly on this webinar. And then if you have any questions for myself or my colleague Molly, and if you want to connect, please feel free to reach out to us via email. Molly will go ahead and drop our contact information into the chat box. And then let's get into the Q&A. Molly, do you have any questions or comments from the group that we can ask Jane and Renee?
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Sierra and Jane and Renee. Wow, that was such an amazing period of time learning a bit about all that you have been up to. I've got to say, just hearing your experiences and your stories, I felt like the entire time the underlying theme of community was just woven through. Creating community, relying on community, just it sort of came up in all different corners of the conversation, which was absolutely beautiful. It doesn't always happen when you talk about funding. So I do have there's just a couple questions, and I encourage folks, if you think of others, please drop them in the chat and we'll get to them. So Jane, if it's okay, I'll shift to you first. In terms of the Kickstarter that you and your co-business owners set up and did, about how long did it take from start to finish to raise the funds that you were shooting for raising, your goal?
So it took 30 days.
30
I
days.
actually had a consultant who specialized in Kickstarters, and also I had a press release through a specific platform, and we were planning on a 60-day time frame, and my consultant suggested 30 days because more people will buy in right there compared to a 60-day time frame, and they feel like it's more leeway there, so they just decided to do 30 days. So
great. And just a follow-up to that, in case there are others who are attending or who are listening to the recording later, when you look back at your experience doing that Kickstarter, what would you say are like two or three things that were sort of key for your success with that Kickstarter that you did?
yeah, I think it's important when it comes to a Kickstarter to have a really good prize, right? And folks can see what they're investing in, and it's not just like a GoFundMe, you know what I mean? And just kind of having donations. They want something back, right? So having a good price and also having value there. For our rentals, we typically charge $300 a night, but we discounted different rates for rentals when they invested. So people would get half price for investing. So yeah, there was incentive there because of those discounts. And again, good prizes that people want to get, and also a good story is important as well. Not just a little short blurb, something that is a good story. And also the video that we did for the Kickstarter helped kind of bridge that connection with the community as well.
Great. Fantastic. Well, if it's okay, I'll go ahead and switch to Renee. And Renee, just a couple short follow-up questions for you. One is about your funding that you used, and you shared that you did an 8-week class and you got a grant at the end of that, and then you worked with I think it's the Office of Rehabilitation Services, if I remember right from the slide, and then you got a grant from that organization. I'm curious if you have a sense of about how long did it take to get the funding? Was it several months? Was it a year or two? How long was your experience?
I'm still currently getting funding from ORS, but from the time that I actually saw this place that I'm in now for rent in February, and I was like, oh! And then so from February, it was like right after Valentine's Day, I started to work on this and get this. So from around Valentine's Day to now, it actually, to get the funding, I would say it was from ORS. Yeah, it was from around Valentine's Day to about late May, I would say. And then from RIDDC, I got their funding a little bit back. So I was able to do shows and get my name out there. So that helped with that. So everything helped in increments to reach there. So yeah, that was good.
Fantastic. Fantastic. That's great. And I just have one other question for you, Renee, and that is, you shared that twice before you have taken steps to move forward with self-employment and that those didn't work. So I'm curious what this time, what do you think is contributing to your success?
Well, one is knowledge. I didn't know what I didn't know back then. I didn't realize there was so much involved. I'm like, yeah, I can do this, sure. And part of that, was also me, realizing that, I need to learn a lot more, and I need to absorb as much as I can. And I need to be in a place to absorb that information as well, because as I mentioned, I was not before. What else was I going to say? Yeah, so I would say that, and also, as you mentioned before, community. That was extremely important. Having supportive people around me and having the right supportive people around me really helped me. And just like reaching out to different people that you don't think anything will come of it, and because for me, I would say like, oh, yeah, I don't think anything will happen with that, and I wouldn't follow up, and but just putting yourself out there, and just reaching out pretty much, and you'll be surprised at what can happen.
Fantastic. Yeah. Community. Who would have known that would have been a theme in our conversation today? So actually, Jamie has a question for you all in the chat, and I'll switch it back to you, Jane. And that is, did you have an accountant or a business person help you manage, these funds that you had coming in, grant funds and Kickstarter funds? So I'll start with you, Jane.
Yeah, that's a good question. So my first business, I established it myself. I really started small and kind of learned as I went. But when it came to Lost River Vacations, one of my co-owners has an accounting degree, Sean. So he actually does our accounting, our taxes, and we fully entrust in him to do all of that. So, and he has that educational experience until we all realized we needed to sign up with a tax attorney, somebody who specializes in tax, to make sure that we're benefiting when it comes to filing our taxes properly. And also there are a lot of tax loopholes out there when it comes to owning a business. So having somebody who specializes in that will help. So we just contract with the new tax attorney.
Great, great. And Renee, have you had anybody helping you with the money management side of the business?
Up until a few weeks ago, I have not. I always did my own taxes. I learned, you know, all the in and outs of a Schedule C and what I can deduct and, you know, stuff like that. But through ORS, they set me up with a QuickBooks, like workshops every week. So I have somebody come here and teach me QuickBooks. And then now, because I have a brick and mortar, I will be getting an accountant. I'm not handling that myself. So
Fantastic. Fantastic. And looks like we've got one more question for you, Renee. I think I need to stop saying one more question.
no, that's okay. I'm happy
looks
to
like-
answer any.
No, yeah, that's wonderful. And that is, this one's for you, Renee, and that is you shared at some point in our conversation that you're receiving some disability-based benefits. And so Marty's asking if you can share a little bit about your process for starting a business and managing those benefits, and if you have any experience with a PASS plan.
Sure. I am looking to get set up with a PASS plan. Also through ORS, they set me up with benefits counseling because I need to know, you know, what the cutoff is, and I need to know how much I can make. So I'm currently scheduled for meetings in July right now. And also just knowing, you know, working that into taxes and whatnot, because I would need to be informed about that. So far, I mean, I'm not making a profit right off the bat, so I don't really have to worry about that. But I do want to know, and I'm curious, so I can keep all my be in good standing with everything.
Great. Fantastic. And when we're done with our Q&A before we finish up, I can drop a link in the chat box. If folks want to find a benefit planner in their state, since we tend to have people joining us from all sorts of different states, that's great that, Renee, that ORS, that Office of Rehabilitation Services, sets you up with someone. And if there's other people on the call that are receiving benefits and going into business, it would be great for everyone else to get connected with a benefits counselor. Karen has a question in terms of when you're asking for funding. And Jane, I'll kick this one back to you first. When you were asking for funding, what information is it good to have about your business when you present that to a funding source?
Well, I didn't ask for funding, so I'm not sure. I don't know, to be honest. But really, you need to know your bank account. You need to have a bank plan. You need to have your tax information. But personally, I've never actually reached out to somebody and asked for funding, so I don't necessarily have experience with that. I just have experience with Kickstarter.
Got it. Yeah. Well, and thank you for that. Yeah. It's so interesting. It's so true with different people going into business. You end up using different sources of funding. It can look so different from one person to another. So Renee, I think you mentioned that with ORS, you did some type of a presentation. You put together some information. Can you share a little bit about what you presented and what information you pulled together?
Sure. So it was pretty much, I made a long business plan, and I presented to them, why I got into this business, kind of the same thing I did here. What has worked for me as far as selling, what I sold, and a little bit of my experience in my life. And it was kind of like Shark Tank, where you go on and you pitch your product and why. And it was kind of like that. And I had a very good reception to that. And my business partner was there as well, the one that backed me, and it was a very good experience. Yeah, it was really good. There was about, I think, 8 people there, and they made me feel very comfortable, and it was really nice to talk about what I do for such a long period of time, and because usually I don't get to do that, so that was very nice, like kind of like here. So thanks for that.
Yeah, well, really the thanks goes to you. We're the ones that are really benefiting from everything and Jane have been sharing.